15, verses 9 through 11. Genesis. Genesis, of course, is the first book in the Bible, first book of the Old Testament, first book of the Torah, or sometimes called the Pentateuch. Genesis was written by, who knows? Who wrote Genesis?
Moses.
Yes, Moses. Moses wrote all of the first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah. Genesis 15 reads, so, in verse 9 reads, so the Lord said to him, we're talking about Abram at this time, bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drew them away. May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. You may have your seats. I want to speak briefly today on the subject, don't start nothing, won't be nothing. Amen. Don't start nothing, won't be nothing. I was reading this account of God calling Abram. Y'all know Abram, later his name changed to Abraham. And so if you hear me call him Abraham, it's by habit. Of course, this is before the change. His name is Abram at this point. And God promised Abram, that he would make him a great nation. I read this account, and Abram was concerned because he and his wife were very old. And he said, how is this so, God? Because as it stands now, I'm a man with no children. In fact, I've figured it out that when I die, I must leave all of my earthly goods to my servant. Because I have no one, I have no heir in which to leave them to. God told Abram, he said, Abram, you will have a son. You will have an heir. You will not have to leave your fortune to a servant. He said, I'm going to make a covenant with you. And as a symbol of this covenant, and this is where we come in, he said, I want you to bring me a heifer, a goat, a ram, each 3 years old, and also a dove and a young pigeon. And I was reading this, and it says that Abram brought all of these things to God. And as I was reading, a few things dawned on me that I would like to share with you. Number one, God was specific, but Abram was faithful. Listen, I read this. I'm going to show y'all something. God required a heifer. How many people grandma used to call people heifer? I didn't know what that was, but when you look it up, it's a female cow. A lot of times they're young, and they haven't even given birth yet. A lot of them. Heifers are those that are pretty, they're young, and so it's a female cow, a goat, and a ram. A ram is a male sheep. And they all had to be 3 years old. God didn't say, bring me these things and just bring me a cow, a goat, and a sheep. Any age. He was very specific on what he wanted. Then he says, I need you also to bring me a dove and a young pigeon. Do y'all know that a dove and a pigeon are pretty much the same bird? Y'all ever looked at a dove and a pigeon? Google, don't do it right this second. When you get a chance, Google dove and then Google pigeon and put it side by side. Pretty much the only difference, they're from the same bird family. The only difference in these two birds is the color. we glorify doves. We like, ooh, the doves, we let them out. Don't nobody want a pigeon flying around their wedding, We let the white dove out to fly around, but we don't want that. Well, we so racist when it comes to animals, so we don't want the black pigeon to go and fly nowhere. But we let the white dove, why we do that? Come on now, black people. We need to go ahead and put some doves, put some pigeons in a cage and let them out, amen? So, we get colorism when it comes to birds. But in any case, it's pretty much the same bird. And when they're young, when a pigeon is young, just like most birds, they're pretty much going to look the exact same. A young pigeon and a young dove, it's very hard to tell the two animals apart. Because when they get older, they start to get their color. And as a baby, as a young pigeon, it's going to look almost identical to a dove. Which means that Abram had to actually pay attention when he went to find these animals. Abram had work to do when God asked for what he asked for. He couldn't just go out and pick any cow. He had to get one that was 3 years old, a heifer. He couldn't just go out and pick any sheep. It had to be a male sheep, a ram, and it had to be 3 years old. He couldn't just pick out any pigeon and any dove. It needed to be a young pigeon. And he would have had to do some research in order for this to happen. He would have had to know which one out of my flock was born 3 years ago and which one out of my flock is eligible to be put into what God is asking me to do, because everything in your life is not eligible to be put before God. See, there's some stuff, though it is good enough for man, it is not the specific qualification for God. And when God is trying to do something in your life, a lot of times he will become very specific with you, because he wants to know just how far and just how obedient are you going to be for me to make a covenant with you. Okay. I'm about to do something. I'm promising you something here. I'm about to promise you to become a nation. The least you can do is go ahead and get me a heifer, a ram, and a goat 3 years old, a pigeon and a dove, and set them before me. Some of us, we like to skimp on God, don't we? Yes. God will tell us what to do, and we say, well, this is good enough. God has told us to do something very specific, and yet this is good enough. I can't, God, that takes too much effort for me to go out and do exactly what you asked. So I'm just going to do half of it. What about 3/4 of it, God? Will you take that as an offering? I'm going to tell you something. When it came to Cain and Abel, one of them was obedient to God, one of them wasn't. One of them gave God good enough, and one of them gave God what he wanted. Amen? Amen. One of them's offering was considered a good offering, and one was not. Not that neither one were good, but one was better than the other because it's what God asked for. Right. We sometimes take for granted in the church as pastors that the congregation is full of folks that are sinning and they just trying to get right. But we sometimes forget that within the group of people that we are talking to, that there are some people that have been righteous to God. That we are talking not only to those that are trying to get to the point where they want to get better, but we're talking to some folks that's really put in some work to be better. And I have a good feeling, because at Agape we stress over and over again that we have to be living on the righteous side, that we have to be living towards God, and we want you to build yourself spiritually. That I'm talking to a room full of people that's not just out here sinning and just come to church, but we're out here actually trying to do something for God. We are the ones that's out here trying to get a ram and a goat and do it in the exact specification that God has called us to do. We're not out here just living any old kind of way. We're out here really trying to do what God has called us to do. We're people of an earnest heart. We're people that know that if God has promised us something, that God will come through on that promise. We've seen changes in our own lives, and we're encouraging other people to come along, get on board, and get with the same change. We got some folks in here that are living righteous, that's doing what they're supposed to be doing, that's reading their word. And I tell you, do not get weary in your well-doing, because in due time you shall reap. The Bible says right here that Abram went and he did some work for God. Amen? He was specific, but Abram was faithful. Abram did as God asked. The Bible said he cut the animals in half. He sacrificed them. He sacrificed the animals. I looked at that thing again and I said 3 years old. At 3 years old, that is when an animal really gets into its productive stage. It's different than children. Children takes us a little while. People, we take a little while. But an animal at 3 years old, that's when they get into their 20s. An animal, their 20s and 30s. Those are the most productive years from that. That's when they are young enough to still do a whole bunch of work. They're not going to break down. See, if you get an animal that's over, 6 and 7 years old, you could break them trying to put a lot on them. But you got a 3-year-old animal, that animal's ready to work. You ready to strap that thing up and it can carry and pull and ain't nothing going to happen to it. Come on, it's just like us when we young. You know you used to stay out all night long, still be able to wake and come to church the next morning. Saturday night, you out there partying, but still be able to wake up just like nothing ever happened. You try that now on a Saturday night. Don't come at all. I can't make it in today. Because you're tired, because you're old. Amen. Hey, when I was a child, I did as a child. But then as I became old, I put childish things away. Can't do everything you used to do when you were in your 20s. Some of us try, but it's not going to work. That 3-year-old animal, that is when it's getting into its productive stage. That's when it's getting ready to have babies. And as a farmer, as someone that's keeping animals, you want that baby. You want that animal to have children so that it can then become 3 years old and do some work. Because if you don't allow your animals to breed, you're going to end up with no animals after a while. And so God said, give me your best. Give me the ones that you didn't actually put a little bit of stock into. See, some of us, we have actually put stock into certain things. And see, that is going to pan out for me eventually. You've already put your mind on it. That right there, I put my eggs in that basket because as soon as it turns whatever the age it needs to turn, I'm going to let it sit there and marinate a little bit. And as soon as it's ready, that thing is going to actually pan out for me. And that's what God told Abram to give to him. The thing in which was just about to become lucrative. He said, see, many of us, we sitting in that same scenario where God is saying, hey, I want you to give me that. And you looking like, can't be that, God. This is the thing I done put my blood, sweat, and tears into, because eventually this thing was supposed to, in fact, it's right about to turn around for me. God, what you mean offer that to you? God, I can't offer you that. I'll give you that one over there. You like Mr. Bargaining with Celie and them. I can't let you have Nettie, but I let you have Celie. You can't. But God is saying, I want your best. Somebody just got it. Somebody's here today because God has asked you to give up something that you've put a whole lot of work into. I'm talking to somebody today because you've put a lot of effort into something and God has said, all right, now sacrifice that to me. You see it being taken away from you. You done put effort, I don't know whether it's a business or whatever, a book or whatever. You put effort into it. And you figured that this eventually is going to pan out for me. And then you're seeing and you're hearing from the Lord. The Lord has said, nah, give that to me. Turn it over. That's mine. And you're feeling some kind of way about it. Because God is trying to, it looks like God is trying to take something from me that I put so much effort into. Could be a relationship, could be anything, a friendship, whatever. I put so much time into this thing, and God, you really telling me that I got to give this up to you? Oftentimes God will require us to lay before him the fruit of our labor so he can show himself God in it. Give it back to God to do with it what he wants to do. That is the key and the recipe for success. This is often a key, a point that we miss as Christians. Because we feel like, well, God wants us to build these great ministries. And God wants us to build these great things. And then they're mine. But God is saying it's really not yours. You're building it for me. And so then what I want you to do is give it back to me.
Come on, Pastor.
And I want you to allow me to get in it.
That's right.
But we have become so attached to it that we don't want to let it go. we don't want to actually relinquish our hands off it because we are afraid of what might happen. You're going to destroy it, God. See, Abram had to actually cut these things in half. These things that he had loved and cared for and had hoped that they would actually bring some type of reward to him. He had to get rid of them. Why? Because God had better in store for him.
Amen. That's right.
Abram laid the broken pieces before the Lord, and the scripture declares that right when he did so, birds of prey came to devour it. Let me tell you something. Anything you do for God, you will have people who want to come and destroy it. You will always have birds of prey that are going to come along and try to steal what you have laid out for God. Why? Because they are not going to understand that you are giving it to God. They just gonna see, oh, it's a free opportunity, and try to jump on it. Many of us right now have birds of prey, and we call them family and friends, who are looking and seeing what we have done, and they're saying, well, let me jump in on it, and they want to steal it from us. And what they're really doing is stealing from God.
That's right.
Watch this though. Abram is recorded as chasing the birds away. Tell somebody this is where it really begins. Don't start nothing, won't be nothing. You have to believe in your work the way your enemy believes in your work. Somebody gonna catch that when you go home, because a lot of times your enemy believes in you better than what you believe in you. How do I know that? Because anytime somebody is stepping in trying to take something from you that you ain't even built yet, they believe that it's going to end up as something. Otherwise, they wouldn't want it so bad. See, the thing is, if you believe in my cooking and you see me in the kitchen seasoning up some chicken, I don't eat chicken, but whatever, and I'm seasoning it up, and you believe that I can cook, the moment I put it in the oven, that's when you gonna come around and try to pull it out and have some for yourself. But if you didn't believe that I could cook to begin with, you let me bake it, you let me bring it out, you let me put it on a plate, you let me eat it, and you wouldn't have nothing to say. The enemy believes in you worse and better than what you believe in you, because they try to thwart what you have going on before it even come into fruition.
Amen. That's right.
We have to be like Abram, ready to fight for what we've started. He could not let the devil have the birds of prey, have the dead animals, and just go on and get some more. He couldn't do that. He wasn't going to do that. So sure, he could have. He could have said, man, some birds of prey came along and snatched up what I was trying to give to you, God, and make God an excuse. God, I had them all laid out for you, and I was ready to sacrifice. In fact, I did sacrifice. But don't you know, some birds swooped in and took all of the stuff that I was going to get. That count, don't it, God? He could have done that. Or he could have said, well, you know what? I'm just going to let y'all take it. Everything I try to do for God, something always happens. And it step in and take it. I'm just going to sit here and sulk. I'm not doing nothing no more. Because anytime I ever try to do something, something just comes along and ends up, I'm done. I quit. He could have done that. See, I'm stepping on some toes. That's why I got quiet in here right now. Because some of us, we have started stuff and the enemy came in, swooped in, got a hold to it, and we've done one of those two things. We have either tried to say, God, I tried, won't you accept that? Or we said, forget it, I ain't even going to do nothing, and we sat back. But I'm going to tell you today, you got to fight for what is yours. You better tell the enemy, if you don't start nothing, won't be nothing. And when I lay it out before the Lord and I'm standing over it, I dare you to come along and try to snatch it, because I'm ready for a fight. You don't know me because I'm scrappy on the inside. Don't let the little stature fool you, because if you're coming after what I got for God, you're going to have a fight on your hands. I'm not going to let it go so easy. I'm not going to let you come in and swoop it and take it away. I will not stand before God with an excuse. I will not lay down and pout because somebody took something from me. I got to stand up and I got to fight. Here it is, God, it's for you. Somebody want to snatch in for it? I'm coming. Don't start nothing. Don't be nothing.
All right, Master. There you go.
Abram said he had toiled for those animals.
That's right.
He had laid those animals out for God. He done took his time and his effort nothing. Y'all better get your minds together around it. The things that God has told you to do, don't you let nobody come in and try to swoop down and devour it. Don't start nothing, won't be nothing. You better stand up. Christians, we believe to be such like we're just doormats for everybody, because the world has told us, what would Jesus do? Jesus, the meek and the mild. Jesus wouldn't say a bad thing about nobody. Jesus wouldn't allow somebody. What I'm gonna tell you about Jesus. You turn through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you will see Jesus telling the Pharisees, you hypocrite. You will see Jesus standing right before the Sanhedrin, telling them they ain't nobody. Their mama ain't nobody. They ain't gonna be nobody. You will see Jesus. You don't believe me? Right. Jesus said, they said, Jesus, your mama outside. Jesus said, who is my mama? That's right. You don't think Jesus brought forth mama into? Jesus said all the things.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's right.
None of y'all following after God.
Yeah, that's the word, Pastor.
None of y'all following after God. And that's the God I serve. That's the Jesus that Jesus is the one that went past the fig tree, and the fig tree wouldn't produce no fruit. And Jesus said, I tell you today, you will be dead and you shall never produce fruit again in your life. The next day they walked past the same fig tree, and daggone if it wasn't dead.
That's right.
Curse the tree for not producing fruit. How dare you allow the world to tell you to sit meek and mild? How dare you allow the world to tell you who your God is and what your God would do? The world wants us to believe that. The world wants us to believe Jesus wouldn't harm a fly. Jesus wouldn't do this. Jesus wouldn't do that. They ain't never read the word before a day in their life. But the problem is, neither have we. As soon as they say it, we believe it.
The devil is a liar.
You have to work. If you work for something, you can't let nobody steal it from you. You've worked for your good name. Amen. Don't you let nobody steal your good name from behind you. Amen. You've worked for your integrity. Don't you let nobody steal your integrity. You have worked for your visions. Don't you let nobody steal your vision. You have worked for your spouse. Don't you let nobody come in and take them. You have worked for your good job. Don't you let nobody to steal that from you. You have worked for your business. Don't you let nobody, how dare a vulture come along and try to take it. Amen. You better tell somebody I've put too much effort in my righteousness. Too much effort in my righteousness. Don't start nothing, won't be nothing. I put too much time into my family, so don't start nothing, won't be nothing. I put too much hard work into my good name, so don't start nothing and it won't be nothing. I've been too faithful to let you ruin it, so don't start nothing, won't be nothing. I've done too much changing to let you make me revert, so don't start nothing and won't be nothing. What you talking about, Pastor? You say don't start nothing, won't be nothing. But tell you can do what you need to do without compromising who you are in God to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Jesus said. Yeah. See, a lot of times we want to take things into our own hands and we just handle it all wrong. Some things we should take into our own. Some we cannot allow people to run over us. We can allow people to treat us a certain way. Let me tell you, you teach people how to treat you. Yeah. You teach them by allowing it. Amen. There's nothing wrong with you standing onto your principles and saying, no, that's not the way that I'm going to be treated. You will treat me this way. And if you can't do that, that's fine. You're an adult. You can do whatever you want. But I will remove myself from the situation.
That's it.
That's how you handle that. You don't got to get scrappy. You got to hurt nobody. You ain't got to cuss nobody out in order for you. But you let them know this is what I will allow in my space. If you can't do it,
it's fine.
That's fine. I'm going to just remove myself from that space. Don't follow me. You stay where you are. I stay where I am. Tell you that's what Abraham had to do with Lot. That's where we get that from. We used to do this at the end of church. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we absent one from another. Amen. See, basically what that is saying, I don't know why we do it at the end of church, but basically what that is saying is, you go your way, I'm going to go mine. You stay over there and you leave me alone. I'll stay over here and leave you alone. In other words, don't start nothing, won't be nothing. Everything we do is in the Word of God.
Amen.
There's ways in which to handle things. We don't have to compromise your salvation. You don't have to compromise your God. You don't have to compromise any of those, your witness, none of that. Nobody can ever say that you are wrong. They'll try, but they can never have any foundation on you have treated them wrong simply by you demanding the respect that you deserve as a human being. They can try. They can think you were mean to me, but was I really? I wasn't mean. I was standing up for the principles in which I lived my life. You govern how people treat you, how people talk to you, how people act around you. That is yours to dictate. Amen. And there's nothing wrong with correcting people when they overstep. Amen. You do it in love. You do it with a firm foundation of I love you, but I'm not going to allow you to harm me. Right. And if you cannot adhere to this, that's fine. But I cannot continue to be in your space with you treating me this way. Yes. That's it. That's as easy as it gets. Yes. Don't start nothing. Won't be nothing. Whatever God is asking you to do today, do it.
Say that one more time, Pastor.
He asked you to get a heifer, a goat, and a ram. Get a heifer, a goat, and a ram. And I ain't talking about your ex-friend. Somebody go, look down and brought you a heifer. I got it right here. But when God says to be specific, when he wants something from you, he's not trying to play with you. He's not just going to go out there and tell you to do something. He's not a man that he should lie. That he'll tell you to go out and get something and laugh at you when you can't find it. God is going to say, go get these things. It's for a reason and a purpose. So whatever God is asking you to do, just do it. Amen. If God is asking you to give up the things that you love the most, give them up. Yeah, that's right. Put them right there. God, they're yours. Do with them what you want. He said, let this be a symbol of my covenant with you. See, the thing is, the greater was before him. He just wanted that little bit of sacrifice from him. God wants to give you greater. But he wants to also know that you are worthy and have earned and will take responsibility of the greater. If Abram was unable to keep hold of a flock and know which ones was 3 years old, which ones was male and which ones was female, the difference between a bird and a dove and a pigeon, if he was unable to do that, I'm sorry, you ain't able to lead no nation either. That's it. Right. That's right. I got to know who you are. Who are you? You're a man that knows exactly how old his flock is? Good to go. You're a man that can distinguish between this and that? Cool. Now I know you're worthy of the blessing. Don't scoff at God when he asks me to do something. Just do it. And then when the enemy comes in, and I said when, the enemy comes in to take it, you fight for it. This belongs to God. I put too much work into it. It's his. Anybody that wants to compromise it, gonna deal with me. Amen. The devil that wants to steal it, because he said he's like a raging lion seeking who he might devour. Not today, devil. Don't start nothing. Won't be nothing. Amen. God bless.